I woke up on a mission. I had this vision in my head that was fading so quickly, and I needed to get it down in physical form before I lost it entirely. Sunlight's just peeking through the bedroom window, and I start fumbling around for any sort of thing that'll make a mark. I will find something to make a mark so that I can get my vision completely colored in just like I had imagined it in my dream. I stop at nothing. I'm fumbling over things, I'm opening drawers, and then I find it. A Sharpie. I am absolutely possessed. I'm in this fugue state of creativity. Big sweeping arcs, action lines, landscape taking shape, 3 perfect circles, and then 3 more, and then 3 more after that. Birds in the sky. And just as quickly, the vision is fading and the motions and my arms are slowing and I'm exhaling. And slowly I find myself backing away and just taking stock of the absolute masterpiece that is before me. Hi, son. Thanks for stopping by today. That scenario that I just painted for you was actually a snippet of what is my first memory of my life. I have to be less than 4 years old here, and this memory continually resurfaces throughout my life. And I'd like to talk to you today about earliest memories and what they mean and how we unpack them and how we can use them as we move forward in life. I wonder if any of our other friends and family have earliest memories they'd like to communicate. I think it'd be really fun to hear from them also. So please leave a comment and let us know what they were, how they felt, and what they mean to you now. So the vision that I had spoken of in the beginning of this video, it was actually a dream, of such a vivid dream that I had about Christmas time. It must have been around Christmas time. Maybe it wasn't. I don't even know. But this memory that I have begins with a dream about Christmas. And I just remember the feeling of waking up from that dream, and it was the most special vision and experience that I had ever had. It was so warm and cozy and inviting, and I needed to retain this. I had to take what was in my head and get it out physically because I knew it was going to leave me, you know? I remember the activeness of the drawing experience. And another thing that I didn't color in completely initially was that I was drawing on my bedroom wall. And I was in my crib when I woke up, right? My mom, your Graham, she's an artist, and she really took pride in decorating our rooms as we were growing up. She loved to theme them. Every season or every year, she'd be hauling paint buckets in there, and she'd have stencils out, and she'd sketch out murals, that were themed around the things that we were interested in. I don't remember what the theme might have been on this particular occasion because I was pretty young. It could have been like Care Bears or something, right? As I progressed in life, I got more manly, and I had things like Ghostbusters, and I had Batman. I remember Batman stayed for a long, long time. It was like Gotham City, and it had the bat signal, on the wall. It's really cool. In any case, I don't know how I got a Sharpie, but it must have just been in the room of things because my mom was doing creative projects. Maybe she was even in process or having just finished one of the murals, in our room. But find a Sharpie I did, and it was like early morning, as I said, and nobody was in checking in on me, and I didn't really care at that point because I had a mission, I had a vision, and I needed to get it down on paper or whatever writable surface I could find. Well, that writable surface happened to be right above my crib, right on top of a mural in my room. And I did this whole landscape of Christmas time. As I said, I remember viscerally wanting to capture the snowmen that I saw in my dream. There were snowmen everywhere, and consequently, I put snowmen all over my wall. But I'm pretty sure Santa was there as well. I'm pretty sure chimneys were there. I'm pretty sure Christmas trees were everywhere. It was a landscape in my mind, I remember the feeling of completing the thing, feeling so proud of what I had done, what I had accomplished. It, to me, perfectly represented that experience that I had had in my dream. So when Graham opens the door, I'm so excited to reveal my masterpiece to her. I just remember triumphantly presenting what I had done here in my room. From here, my memory gets a little bit fuzzy, but my parents have filled it in for me that my dad had been working third shift and he had just gotten home, right? And that's the start of the morning, essentially, right? And so my dad tells me that my mom had sort of called him in and suggested under her breath that he needed to punish me. They're both sort of giggling at each other because of just the absurdity of what they walked in on, and my enthusiasm, I'm sure, played a big role in it. So Dad begrudgingly lifts me up. He kind of folds me over his arm, and he gives me a couple of taps on on the butt. Now, from my perspective, I do remember feeling upside down at a certain point. And I remember my dad's contact, the spanking, it was very gentle, to say the least. But it still made me emotional because I felt like I was in trouble. And that's sort of where the arc of the memory closes. It's the beginning where there's this big vision. There's the middle where I struggle and strife. And there's the end where I finish my masterpiece and then I'm upside down, confused. So I was driving back to see your grandpa recently, and I was thinking once again about this memory that stuck in my head. I wanted so badly to ask my own dad about his earliest memory. I know there's not much time left between us, and I want to get a picture of what life was like from his perspective, as much as possible, as clearly as I can imagine it or as he can communicate it. Unfortunately, my dad couldn't come up with an earliest memory that really stood out sharply to him at this point in his life. And that made me feel like it was really useful to communicate this now, while it's still prescient and fresh and inspiring. And I say inspiring because I was thinking a lot about this memory on the drive to see Grandpa and then on the drive home. And I recognize that this memory says so much about who I am, who I've become, and the journey I had in sort of rejecting that, and the journey I'm having again in welcoming it in this season of life. I am a creative. I'm a person who's driven passionately by visions, by things that they see in their mind that they need to manifest in the physical realm. I've always been that way. I remember starting a video game magazine when I was in 4th grade. I read like the EGMs and the Nintendo Powers and things back in those days. I was always inspired by how the stories in those magazines could really light my imagination on fire, And so I remember going to the library and that they had magazines there. So I would collect all the current editions and then I would try to formulate my own opinions based on all the things that I was reading. And I remember sending out copies of these magazines to the students, in my class. And I just wrote everything on paper. I did little artworks and stapled them together, So I always had big imagination, big dreams, and I was ready to take swings, And inevitably life comes at us really quickly as we grow, and we have to take in so much information. And I think early on in life, even up to my teens or so, I had a really keen sense of needing to absorb information and needing to sort of conceptualize it in my own mind. I was always in my room studying or listening to music or just creating things. And I think over the course of my young adulthood, I got less and less secure about who I was, a little more disillusioned about where I was going. I got caught in a cycle of achievement and validation and economy that I think many people in adulthood reach, especially dads or providers who are kind of in the workplace and you're kind of going through these cycles of stress and highs and lows, and you're getting more and more dependencies coming your way with kids and bills and insurances, and things happen in life, accidents. And I think it can be easy to lose sight of how we started our journey. And a lot of times we could even potentially reject where we started because of the lessons that we learned or the trauma that had happened to us in our lives. And as I go through cycles of burnout and rejuvenation throughout the years myself, I start to ask myself, what's really driving this roller coaster that it feels like I can't get off of, In driving home from seeing Grandpa, I recognized in this early memory that there is the seed of who I am and who I always will be in the totality of this memory. And when I try to put on costumes to reflect what's around me or what external perceptions suggest I should be achieving, then that's when I get into these states where I get physical issues, I get mental issues, I wear down and I lose my spirit. So one of the great things about getting to talk to you in this way is I get to exercise this little seed of who I am continuously. I am so inspired these days getting to have these conversations and getting to put down on paper in some physical form what visions are shaping within my mind. Having this revelation about my earliest memory, and then the ability to kind of speak it into existence with the Sharpie as I did from my earliest days, it really puts me in this place that I'm sort of living out what I'm meant to live out. So I really wanted to tell you that it's useful to hold on to your earliest memories. Go back in your mind, think about, what really stands out. And there's a reason that it stands out. What I think that memory is your actual self kind of knocking on the door. It's going to get louder and louder for you the farther away you are from the intent of that memory. So pay extra special attention when it's knocking loudly. And you might have visions or you might have memories that don't make sense to anyone else. But your responsibility to yourself is to lean into those memories and their meaning. Because contained within that experience is some seed that can guide you in the right direction. Now, I mentioned that drive up and back to see Grandpa earlier on. That meeting ended up being one of the last conversations that we had. And there's another story I have about my experience with my own father and how I imagined a final conversation playing out between the two of us. I deal with several other early memories there, and I think it might be useful for you to hear those as well. It's right over here if you have a little bit more time today. And it's been so great getting to spend more time with you. All my love to you.